The email came while I was sipping coffee in my tiny rented apartment. Property transfer confirmed. For a second, I thought it was spam. But when I saw the condo's address, Grandma's condo, my heart stopped. That condo wasn't just a place. It was her. The floral curtains she sewed herself. The creaky swing chair where she'd sip mint tea every evening. The same kitchen where she used to tell me, "Sweetheart, peace doesn't live in walls. It lives in hearts that build them." And now it was gone. Sold. Not by a stranger, not by some agency, but by my own sister. The funny part? She even texted me that morning. "Hope you're doing great. We should catch up soon." Yeah, catch up, while she cashed the check. See, I wasn't some clueless fool. Grandma had left everything documented. Or so I thought. I'd inherited the condo fair and square. But somewhere between grief and trust, I'd signed one maintenance document my sister said was for utility bills. Turns out it wasn't. That signature? The golden ticket she used to sell my inheritance behind my back. But don't get too comfortable thinking this is another story of betrayal and loss. Because what my sister didn't know, what nobody knew, was that Grandma had one final trick of her own, and trust me, when the truth surfaced, it didn't just expose my sister's greed. It redefined what family legacy and justice really mean. My name is Claire Morrison. I'm 36, work in a small-town library, and I'm probably the last person you'd expect to be caught in a property scandal. But that's the thing about life. The people who smile the brightest sometimes hide the darkest secrets. So how did a quiet, book-loving woman end up unraveling one of the boldest family betrayals I've ever seen? Let's rewind, back to where it all began. Before the email, before the lie, before the mistake that changed everything. Welcome, story lovers. From where are you watching? Drop your city name in the comments and let's see how far our story travels. Claire Morrison wasn't born lucky. She was born in a house where love came wrapped in duty, and silence was how people said, "You'll be fine." Her mother worked long shifts at the local diner, her apron always stained with coffee and hope. Her father? A construction worker who believed that emotions were a luxury for people with time, and time was something he never had. Claire grew up in the quiet corners of small-town Ohio, where dreams usually died between the aisles of the only grocery store in town. But she was different. She wanted to build something lasting. Maybe not a company or empire, just a life that didn't depend on anyone else's mercy. Books became her escape. She devoured stories about people who rose from nothing, lawyers, doctors, women who turned pain into purpose. And whenever she stayed over at Grandma's condo, she felt like she'd stepped into one of those stories. Grandma Rose Morrison was warmth personified, a woman who could calm a storm with a cup of tea and a laugh that shook the wallpaper. Her condo by the lake wasn't fancy, but it felt like belonging. Every corner whispered a story. The framed photo of Grandpa in uniform, the porcelain lamp with a crack they never fixed, the lemon-scented candles always burning in the hallway. When Claire was 16, Grandma was the first person who told her, "You don't have to be the loudest to be strong. Just be steady." And steady she became. She worked her way through community college, graduated with a degree in English literature, and took a modest job at the local library. Not glamorous, not high-paying, but peaceful. And peace was rare in her world. Her sister Melanie was the opposite, charming, confident, and always one step ahead in the game of appearances. Where Claire saw meaning, Melanie saw opportunity. She'd married a man with a real estate business, wore designer sunglasses, and liked to remind everyone that life is about making moves, not waiting for miracles. At first, Claire admired her, the way she navigated life with boldness, the way people listened when she spoke. But admiration slowly turned into exhaustion, because in every family photo, Melanie was the shining star. And Claire? Just the background blur. Still, she never complained. When their parents died within the same year, first dad to a stroke, then mom to heartbreak, Claire was the one who handled the funeral details, the debts, the estate paperwork. Melanie showed up for the eulogies, the hugs, and the photo ops. That was the pattern. Claire carried the weight. Melanie carried the credit. Then came Grandma's illness. Rose had grown frail, her laughter slower, her memory slipping like sand through fingers. Claire visited every week, changed the bed sheets, refilled prescriptions, read aloud from her favorite books. Melanie, of course, was busy. She'd swing by occasionally with flowers and a camera-ready smile, but Grandma knew who was really there. The day she fell and fractured her hip, it was Claire who rode in the ambulance holding her hand. The doctor said she might not have much time. And when Grandma looked at her, eyes cloudy but full of love, she whispered, "Promise me you'll keep this place safe. It's all that's left of us," Claire promised. After Grandma passed, the will was read in a small office that smelled like old paper and lemon polish. The condo officially left to Claire. A few small investments, split between the sisters. Melanie smiled that day, too wide, too calm. She said, "It's perfect, Claire. You deserve it. Grandma adored you." And for once, Claire believed her. But behind that smile was a storm already forming. The months after the funeral were hard. Grief doesn't come like thunder. It lingers like fog. Claire spent evenings cleaning the condo, fixing the leaky faucet, rearranging Grandma's furniture just to feel close to her again. Money was tight. The library had cut staff hours. Her rent was late. Still, she refused to sell the condo. It wasn't about money. It was about keeping her word. Melanie offered help, at first. "Let me handle the bills, Claire," she said one afternoon. "You've done enough. I'll manage the paperwork, utilities, and taxes. You just focus on healing." The tone was soft, the smile warm. And Claire, tired, trusting, said yes. That was her first mistake, because underneath the sisterly affection was calculation. Melanie knew Claire's heart was too kind to question, too tired to notice. And while Claire was busy keeping Grandma's memory alive, Melanie was busy turning that memory into money. Still, Claire kept pushing through. She worked weekends, skipped vacations, and even sold her old car just to stay afloat. She dreamed of one day teaching creative writing, maybe starting a small reading club in Grandma's name. But dreams take time. And time costs money, so she settled for quiet days. Small wins and long walks by the lake where Grandma used to sit. She'd whisper to the wind, "I'm trying, Grandma. I really am." And maybe somewhere Grandma heard her. Because the truth, the one Melanie thought she buried under forged signatures and clever lies, was still waiting to surface. But that part comes later. For now, all Claire knew was survival, and the haunting echo of her own promise. Keep this place safe. It's all that's left of us. Claire Morrison wasn't looking for trouble. She'd had enough of it. Late bills, long shifts, and the ache that comes from holding a promise too tight. But life, in its strange way, doesn't ask permission before pulling the rug from under you. It started with a notice, not from the mail, but from a neighbor. Mrs. Daly, an old friend of Grandma's, stopped her outside the condo one crisp morning. "Claire, dear, I saw some men measuring your front lawn. Are you renovating?" "Renovating?" Claire frowned. "No, why?" Mrs. Daly shrugged. "They said they were contractors for the new owner." For a few seconds, Claire laughed. It had to be some misunderstanding. She owned this place. Didn't she? That question lingered all the way home. By the time she reached her mailbox, a thick white envelope waited for her. The one that would flip her entire world upside down. Inside was a legal confirmation of transfer. Her condo had been sold. By Melanie. At first, Claire refused to believe it. Maybe Melanie was helping with refinancing or insurance. But as she flipped through the documents, her name, the owner's name, was crossed out in bold ink. It wasn't a mistake. It was betrayal. She called Melanie immediately. Straight to voicemail. Then came the text. "Hey, sis. Crazy day? Let's talk later. Everything's fine." Everything was not fine. Claire's stomach dropped. She remembered that maintenance form she signed months ago. The one Melanie said was for property taxes. The signature. Her signature. And suddenly, every memory replayed like a cruel montage. Melanie's fake reassurances. Her eager offers to handle things, her sudden interest in real estate again. But Claire wasn't the same naive little sister anymore. Something hardened inside her that day, the quiet kind of anger that doesn't scream, it plans. The first step was to find out exactly what Melanie had done. She went to the county clerk's office, sat under flickering fluorescent lights, and requested all records tied to Grandma's property. The clerk, a kind woman with a skeptical smile, shuffled through the system. After a moment, she looked up. "This property was transferred 3 months ago. Signed by both owners, Melanie and—" "You," Claire blinked. "That's impossible." "I never signed anything." The clerk turned the monitor around, and there it was. Her name, her handwriting, her signature, except it wasn't hers. The slant was wrong. The spacing was off. It looked like her signature, but not quite. Like someone who practiced too hard to make it look natural. For the first time in years, Claire's hands trembled with rage. It wasn't just about the condo anymore. It was about respect, honesty, family. She printed every document she could and drove home in silence. The kind of silence where your thoughts scream louder than any radio. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat at her small kitchen table, papers spread out, coffee gone cold. The weight of betrayal pressed heavy on her chest. Then she noticed something, a detail Melanie had overlooked. The sale document listed the property's legal title as Rose Morrison Family Trust. The trust? Grandma's trust had never been dissolved. It was still active. Which meant that technically any sale required trustee approval. And Claire wasn't just a beneficiary. She was co-trustee. Her pulse quickened. For the first time, hope flickered. She reached out to Grandma's old lawyer, Mr. Hensley, a soft-spoken man who still sent her Christmas cards every year. When he heard her voice tremble over the phone, he didn't hesitate. "Come by tomorrow, Claire. Bring everything you have." The next day, she sat across from him in his old mahogany office, sunlight spilling through dusty blinds. He adjusted his glasses and scanned the documents silently. After a long pause, he looked up. "Claire, this is fraud. Plain and simple." Her throat tightened. "Can we fix it?" He nodded slowly. "We can challenge the sale, but we'll need proof that your signature was forged and that you were misled." It wasn't the easy kind of justice. It was the exhausting kind. The kind that drags you through paperwork, hearings, and sleepless nights. Still, Claire was ready. For weeks, she balanced her library job by day and legal research by night. She learned terms she'd never thought she'd understand. Beneficiary rights, title discrepancies, trust protection clauses. And with each page, she found strength she didn't know she had. Melanie finally called, pretending nothing was wrong. "So how's life, sis?" she chirped. Claire's voice was calm, too calm. "Busy. Hey, did you sell the condo?" A pause. Then laughter. "What? Of course not. Why would you think that?" "Because I got the paperwork, Melanie. And your signature looks really good." For the first time, her sister went silent. Then came the deflection. "You're overreacting, Claire. I was just trying to help. You were struggling. You didn't even use the place." Claire could almost hear the smirk behind her words. The same smirk she'd seen since childhood whenever Melanie got her way, but this time the script was changing. As days passed, Claire began gathering allies, quiet ones. Mrs. Daly offered to testify that contractors had visited weeks before Claire even knew. The county clerk confirmed the unusual rush filing on Melanie's transfer papers. And Mr. Hensley found the silver bullet. Grandma's trust had a retention clause that required both trustees' notarized signatures for any sale. Melanie had forged one. She couldn't fake the other. Still, the process wasn't quick. The buyers, an investment group, threatened legal action if the sale was reversed. Melanie's husband tried to intimidate Claire with lawyer talk and veiled threats. Every call, every meeting, every sleepless night, it all felt like pushing a mountain with bare hands. But something about Grandma's words kept echoing. "You don't have to be the loudest to be strong. Just be steady." And steady Claire remained. She filed her case, attended every hearing, faced every glare from Melanie across the courtroom. When her sister tried to paint her as unstable, broke, and bitter, Claire stayed silent. Because truth, unlike lies, doesn't need to shout. By the time the judge ordered an official handwriting analysis, Melanie's confidence began to crack. The report came in 3 weeks later. Signature inconsistency confirmed. It was the first real victory Claire had tasted in years. Small, but powerful. Still, the war wasn't over. The condo wasn't yet returned, and Melanie's husband's firm was fighting tooth and nail to protect their buyer's rights. But something had shifted. Claire was no longer just a victim. She was becoming the storm. And though she didn't know it yet, the real twist, the one Grandma had unknowingly set in motion years ago, was still waiting to be revealed. The courtroom smelled of tension, a blend of old wood, paper, and nerves. Claire sat at the plaintiff's table, her hands clasped, her heart pounding like a drum she couldn't silence. Across from her sat Melanie, polished, poised, wearing that same confident smile that used to charm teachers, neighbors, and anyone with a checkbook. But this time, that smile looked thinner, forced, for months. Claire had dreamed of this day, the day truth would finally stand taller than lies. The judge entered, stern but fair, and everyone rose. The case was simple in words, complicated in wounds. Claire Morrison versus Melanie Grant, fraudulent sale of inherited property. Melanie's lawyer started strong, smooth voice, expensive suit, the kind of man who could make guilt sound like generosity. "Your Honor," he said, "this was a misunderstanding between sisters. No one here acted with malice. My client merely expedited a process that was already in motion." Expedited. That word stung like acid. Then came Claire's turn. Her lawyer, Mr. Hensley, stood up, old, calm, and sharp as ever. "Your Honor," he said, sliding a folder across the bench, "what my client calls a misunderstanding is, in fact, a documented act of forgery." He opened the file and revealed 2 sheets side by side. Claire's verified signature from the original trust papers and the one on the transfer deed. Even from a distance, the difference screamed louder than any argument. Gasps filled the room. Melanie shifted uncomfortably, her hand tightening around her designer purse. Her husband stared straight ahead, jaw locked. Mr. Hensley continued, his tone steady. "The trust, established by the late Rose Morrison, required the approval of both trustees, not one. Yet the property was sold without my client's consent. The buyer's funds were deposited directly into an account belonging to Mrs. Grant." He paused. Not shared. Not declared. Personal. The judge leaned forward. "Mrs. Grant, is this true?" Melanie's voice trembled just slightly. I only wanted to protect our family's asset." "Claire wasn't doing anything with it." Claire finally looked up, her eyes steady, voice low but firm. "You're right, Melanie. I wasn't doing anything with it. I was honoring it. That condo wasn't a project. It was Grandma's memory. And you turned it into a payday." A hush fell over the courtroom. Even the clicking of the stenographer's keys slowed. For years, Claire had been the quiet one. The one who let things slide. The one who believed peace was better than confrontation. But today, she wasn't the background. She was the truth standing on its own 2 feet. The defense tried to recover. Melanie's lawyer presented a handwriting expert, someone paid to insist the signature looked legitimate. But Mr. Hensley had anticipated that. He stepped aside, letting another figure take the stand, the county's official forensic document examiner. She spoke with clinical precision. "There are 17 points of inconsistency. The signature on the transfer deed was traced, not signed. The curvature, pressure, and pen flow are incompatible with natural motion. Translation? Melanie was caught," the courtroom murmured, and for the first time, Melanie's mask cracked. Her perfect composure slipped, and panic flickered in her eyes. But the moment that truly broke her, the one that felt like time had frozen, came next. Mr. Hensley held up a DVD. "Your Honor, before passing, Rose Morrison left a recorded testament. It was never officially entered into probate because her written will was deemed sufficient. However, given the allegations of intent and trust mismanagement, my client believes this recording should be reviewed. The judge nodded. Proceed. The bailiff dimmed the lights, and the screen flickered to life. There she was, Grandma Rose, frail, gentle, sitting in her favorite armchair, smiling through age and wisdom. Her voice filled the courtroom like a hymn. If you're watching this, I'm probably sipping tea somewhere much better than here. Claire, my sweet girl, this condo is yours to keep. You have the heart that keeps a home warm. Melanie, darling, you already have enough. Promise me you'll let her have this one thing. Gasps rippled through the room. Melanie's face drained of color. Even her lawyer looked down, defeated. Claire's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She just whispered, "Thank you, Grandma." The judge leaned back, sighing. Mrs. Grant, it seems this was not a misunderstanding. It was greed. Plain and simple. Melanie tried one last defense, her voice cracking. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I needed the money, my husband's business, but the judge cut her off. We all need something, Mrs. Grant. What we don't need is to steal it from family. The verdict came swift and clear. The sale was voided. Ownership of the condo reinstated under the original trust. Melanie was ordered to repay damages, legal fees, and face investigation for fraud. But more than the judgment, it was the silence after that struck deepest. The same silence that used to make Claire small now made her powerful. As the gavel struck, Melanie looked across the room, eyes full of tears, shame, maybe even regret. Claire met her gaze, not with anger, but with something heavier. Pity. She stood, gathered her papers, and turned to leave. Outside the courtroom, the autumn air hit her face like freedom. For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. Not because she fought for money, but because she finally stood for herself, dear audience. If you're feeling that rush right now, that moment when truth finally wins, don't forget to give this story a like. It really helps this channel reach more people who believe that quiet strength still matters. And stay with me, because what happens next in Claire's life will surprise you even more. Sometimes redemption doesn't look like revenge. It looks like peace. The court case was over. The papers were signed. And for the first time in years, Claire stood inside her grandmother's condo again, sunlight spilling through the same lace, curtains that had once danced in the afternoon breeze while Grandma hummed old tunes from the 1950s. It didn't look the same anymore. The walls were bare, the furniture gone, the scent of lavender replaced by dust. But somehow, it still felt alive, still hers. She walked slowly through each room, tracing her hand across the chipped windowsill where she and Grandma used to sit with Coco on rainy days. She smiled faintly. "You were right, Grandma," she whispered. It wasn't just a condo. It was our story. For weeks after the verdict, people in town had talked about the betrayal, the lawsuit, the sisters. Some called Claire brave. Others called her ruthless. But she didn't care what anyone called her anymore. For once, she wasn't defined by what others thought. She was defined by what she did. Claire used part of the settlement to restore the condo, not into a luxury rental, not for sale, but into something meaningful, the Rose Foundation, a small community center offering free financial literacy workshops for women recovering from divorce, debt, or family manipulation. Every Saturday morning, women of all ages gathered there, some shy, some broken, some just looking for direction. Claire taught them what she had learned the hard way, how to protect what's theirs, how to read contracts, how to recognize deceit wrapped in love. She didn't lecture, she listened. And soon, that small condo that once represented loss became a place of healing, empowerment, and quiet victory. Melanie didn't disappear. She moved 2 towns over, divorced, and started rebuilding her life. One afternoon, months later, Claire received a letter in handwriting she recognized instantly. It wasn't an apology, at least not the dramatic kind people expect. Just a few lines. "I see now what I did. I lost more than money. I lost you. I'm sorry. Maybe someday we'll sit in that condo again. As sisters." Claire read it twice, then folded it neatly and placed it in Grandma's old recipe box, the one marked, "Keep Forever." She didn't respond. Not yet. Forgiveness, she knew now, wasn't a favor to the other person. It was a gift to yourself. But like any gift worth giving, it takes time to wrap. Life moved on, but differently. Claire started smiling more, laughing louder, sleeping deeper. The community began to notice. Local papers ran a small piece titled, "Woman Turns Legal Battle into Local Hope Center." Soon, a nearby college invited her to speak to young business students about ethical inheritance and family trust laws. She walked onto that stage nervous, clutching her notes, and walked off to a standing ovation. Her grandmother's portrait now hung inside the center's hallway, beneath a brass plaque that read, "Built not from inheritance, but integrity." Years later, on the anniversary of her grandmother's passing, Claire returned to the condo alone. The sun dipped low, painting the sky gold and violet. She brewed tea the way Grandma used to, 2 sugars, no milk, and sat by the same window where life had once felt too heavy to carry. But now it felt light. The air hummed with peace. Outside, children played, laughter echoing through the street. She looked around at the warm light spilling over the walls and thought, this is what justice should feel like. Not vengeance, just balance. The following spring, Claire expanded the Rose Foundation with a second location downtown. Her board members were all women who'd once sat in that same little living room, crying over broken trust and stolen dreams, now business owners, teachers, leaders. They called her Ms. Morrison out of respect. But she still laughed and said, just Claire. She had come full circle. From being the quiet sister in the shadow to becoming the voice that guided others into light. One evening, as she locked up after a long day, she noticed a small bouquet of white roses left at the door. No note, just a quiet gesture, but Claire smiled. She didn't need a name. Some things were better left understood without words. She looked up at the sign glowing softly above the entrance, the Rose Foundation, and whispered, "We did it, Grandma." Then she turned off the lights and walked away, the evening breeze carrying the faintest scent of lavender, as if Grandma herself had heard. Claire didn't win by taking back a condo. She won by taking back herself, and that was worth more than any inheritance could buy. Thanks for watching. If Claire's story touched your heart, hit that like button. It helps our stories reach more people who still believe in truth, courage, and second chances. Subscribe for more real, powerful stories that prove redemption is possible, one choice at a time.